Welcome to the Sports Spectrum Podcast, where faith and sports collide. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
And welcome everyone to the Sports Spectrum Podcast. My name is Jason Romano. This is episode number 86, and we thank you for joining us here on the podcast today. As always, you can download and subscribe. iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, everywhere podcasts are found. All of our content, of course, available at sportspectrum.com. And we'd love to have you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Go to your iPhone, your tablet, click on that podcast app icon, click on the subscribe button, and never miss an episode of the Sports Spectrum Podcast. All 86 of them here for your downloading pleasure. Check them out at Sports Spectrum and at sportspectrum.com. Today's guest features Brett Phillips, Milwaukee Brewers outfielder, and we taped this interview during the offseason, during a conference that Brett and I were able to attend back in late November, early December, and it was a really fantastic and fun conversation. If you don't know a lot about Brett, you will soon. He was a sixth-round selection in the 2012 Major League Baseball amateur draft by the Houston Astros, and he was traded from the Astros to the Milwaukee Brewers organization back in 2015. He was part of that Carlos Gomez deal on July 30th, right near the trade deadline. And he's been through the minor league system. He's been in single A, double A, triple A. And in 2017, he was over in Colorado Springs with the Brewers AAA affiliate Sky Sox organization in the Pacific Coast League. And on June 5th, 2017, Phillips was called up to the Milwaukee Brewers and made his Major League Baseball debut. He still has his rookie status. He only played in a few games last year, I believe 36 of them, had under 100 at-bats, hit 4 homers, had 12 RBI, and he's one of the prospects that the Brewers will be watching very closely here in 2018. And Brett is just a funny human being. When you go Google him, when you go to YouTube and look up Brett Phillips, he is just a funny man who has the most contagious laugh I think I've ever heard. When he gets going and when he starts telling a joke and he laughs at it, he goes into this weird sort of convulsion state and cannot control his laugh. I'm going to try and play you a version of his laugh at the end of this podcast, but he just cannot control himself. And it is so much fun to watch. We witnessed it firsthand at this conference, and he just makes you laugh. He's a good guy who loves the Lord and just is, you know, he's trying to follow in the Lord's footsteps and kind of have the Lord guide him and trying to, you know, establish a very long and prosperous Major League Baseball career. He's in the early infancy stages of this career, and spring training going on right now, Major League Baseball, and the 2018 season is starting up soon. And one guy we'll be watching is our guest today on the Sports Spectrum Podcast, Milwaukee Brewers outfielder Brett Phillips. Here's our conversation. Brett, welcome to the program.
Pleasure, Jason. Thanks for having me here on Sports Spectrum.
Man, that was so
podcast.
Professional.
Oh, man, I'm just trying to be, you know?
Wow. You got a future in this business.
Very rarely am I professional, but this is one of those podcasts that I feel compelled to be as professional as I can.
Wow. Well, please stop that, okay? That would be wonderful. Welcome to the program, man. It's awesome to talk to you. When we saw we were coming to this conference in San Antonio and you were going to be here, I was like, I got to have Brett on the podcast. He's got such a fun story. But I want to start with, we're at this conference, and all of a sudden, an Andy Mineo concert breaks out. And we're up there, and Andy's doing his thing, and all of a sudden, I see Brett Phillips walk up, start dancing, or something close to dancing, and then you just go and do a backflip right in front of Andy. What was going on? Like, how did you end up on stage doing backflips with Andy Mineo?
Yeah, before I say I'm sorry, Milwaukee Brewers, I'm totally healthy.
Yes,
I did not hurt myself.
That is very true. Nothing happened. He's fine.
No.
In fact, was it even you that did the backflip?
Yeah, it was.
Right.
No, but you know, when I find myself in a dance-off because there was another guy dancing,
it was a little challenge.
He was absolutely killing it,
yeah.
And I felt myself losing. So, you know, my defensive way of getting back in the dances, busts out a backflip.
You just went straight to the backflip.
So since he thought the dance was over, I was like, I'm going to hit my best move. Boom, backflip. And I got the crowd going wild. And
you nailed it.
Now we're talking about it, so that's super cool.
Now the bosses came over to me and said, please don't let him do that again, because they're just like, no, liability issues here. But you know who's famous for the backflip is Ozzie Smith, one of the all-time greats. So have you broken out the backflip in a game yet?
No, I think he has that.
Right, but you could do that. Have you done one yet?
No, mine is just dance-off material type.
So we're not bringing this to
backflips.
this. Like, listen, if you hit 4 homers in a game, maybe you'll do a backflip. Is that fair?
Maybe in the clubhouse, but not going out into the field. That's his.
Not Ozzie.
No, I can't.
Well, he did the whole triple back. Like he did the front flip and then the back flip, and I mean he was just amazing.
Just a pure athlete.
Unbelievable.
Me myself, not so much, but
2017 was a big year for you.
Yeah,
it was a fun year. You get called up to the show, the big leagues. That's awesome.
Man, it was one of the most blessed years.
Yeah.
Up to date, 2017, like you said, making my debut and just being able to see what God has done in my life up into this date has just been amazing.
June 5th, 2017. Take me through the whole gamut of what was happening as you were making your major league debut from the moment you got the call.
Talk about an emotional roller coaster. So the day before, I'm in Oklahoma City in AAA with the Colorado Springs Sky Sox, and I get called out into the office. Manager Rick Sweet, he did it in private. He said, "Hey, Travis Shaw's his wife's having a baby, and you're going up to the big leagues." And at that moment, everything kind of I Rick Sweet will tell you that I almost passed out because I went out to grab his arm and say "Are you serious?" And he goes, "Yeah, I wouldn't mess around about this stuff."
Yeah.
So that was super exciting. The first person I called was my mom,
of course, and
obviously the tears were flowing. And made my rounds calling friends and family. I took the time to call everyone who has impacted my life and helped me get to the big leagues. I made about 75 to 100 phone calls.
Right after you found out?
Well, yeah, once I got back to my hotel room.
Right.
And I was able to just comprehend what had happened.
Wow.
And, right then at that moment of saying you're going to the big leagues, just you feel like this weight just gets lifted off your shoulders just because of all the work you've put in. Getting up to that point, and that's as a baseball player, that's the highest level, and that's what we work so hard. And even if it was going to be for a day or 10 years,
never take that moment away.
You can't take that away from like you said, from me. And it was just a super special moment. And fast forward to the next day, I didn't sleep at all. I honestly had a flight at 5.
I'm surprised they didn't just put you on a plane right away.
I wish they would have because I was up all night.
Yeah.
And sure enough, found myself in Milwaukee the next day and walking out into the field and just looking up and being like, wow, I feel so blessed and thankful. And it was just a special night.
And you're in the starting lineup the first game, right?
Yeah, right away, going to Craig Counsell's office. He's like, "Are you ready?" It's like, yeah, I guess.
Right.
Let's go. So he's like, "You're in there. Go show us what you can do, kid."
That's great. That's so cool. Now, I want to ask you if you've ever even been to Milwaukee, Wisconsin before that day.
Fan Fest.
But
I was just kind of secluded to one area.
Yeah.
I didn't really get to experience Milwaukee and get the taste of Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Yeah.
Experiencing that for the first time as well.
So your first game, there's a highlight. If you go on YouTube, that was a wonderful highlight. And I'm not going to give it all away because we're going to talk about the reason why that's wonderful in a minute. But it shows your mom, your stepdad, your dad all there. Your family's there. You get a hit in your first game. So it's really, and you throw out a runner at second. You show off the arm, which is like, your pride and joy, right? So talk to me about the game and just the emotions. You didn't sleep. You're just wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. You're happy to be there. Like, tell me about that first game.
Yeah, Jason, honestly, I experienced every emotion possible that you can experience in a baseball game. Starting with striking out my first at-bat to throwing a guy out. And then later on, I made an error, which I've never done before, just dropped the ball. And then getting my first hit. And then obviously we lost that game. So if you put all those emotions together, that's literally a roller coaster of up, down, up, down, down, up, So, but like you said, that day is gonna forever be in place in my heart and special to me, and no one can take that away from me.
And the cool thing is you still have your rookie status for 2018, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I do.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
Now, you had a really good year. You played in 35 games, 4 homers, hit 276 and 87 at-bats. How do you feel about heading into 2018 here and your chances?
Yeah, I feel great. Ending the season on a great note. I was able to have the opportunity that I had due to some injuries, and coming down in the stretch, I was the only guy, basically Craig Counsell, one of the only guys that he could throw out there, and just taking advantage of that opportunity going into 2018 season. I have a lot to do. I have a lot to work on, but I feel really great. I feel more getting that experience under my belt that I'll feel more comfortable going into the 2018 season.
Now, for those listening that may not know Brett Phillips, may not know the name, if they Google you or go to YouTube, the first thing that comes up is Brett Phillips laugh. And then they're like, oh, that's the guy with the laugh. Now, it's not just as much about your laugh. Your laugh is contagious, by the way, and I love it. But your zest for life, you're just a fun dude to be around. Just watching even some of the highlights in the majors, the 35 games, like you're just genuinely keeping it loose. You're excited. You're fun. Where does that come from? Where does that kind of zest for life come from?
Man, I'm just so happy-go-lucky type of guy. And like you said, just my joy for life when, I just love to interact with people and treat others the way I would want to be treated. That's where it comes from, because I look at, the guys here at this conference, Adam Wainwright, Matt Wieters. You can go down the list of guys who have had an unbelievable career, and they're just open to you, to going up to them and conversating with them. And these are guys who have had unbelievable careers, and I want to be that guy if I'm fortunate enough in the future.
Yeah.
And, just obviously, like I said, just so happy-go-lucky. I see the positive in everything. And
is that how you always were? Since you were a little kid?
Yeah, just super energetic.
Yeah.
Started out, but obviously I'm thankful it went in the right direction.
Yeah.
Most kids who are so hyper, sometimes it goes in a negative direction, but I've learned to harness those emotions and the energy to a positive way in my life.
Now, the laugh, I have to ask about it, obviously. Did that start early? Were you 10 years old and you were the same way? You just couldn't control it and you lose it? And
ever since I can remember,
yeah.
I've laughed like that. In a funny story, last year, Andrew McCutcheon came up to me in private and he said, hey, not to be weird, but are you that guy with the funny laugh? And I was like, yeah, this is Andrew McCutcheon. And my response was, I play a little baseball too.
What a
so
great response.
I'm known as the guy for that funny laugh,
Sure.
which is great. It's cool, but I play baseball too, and I like to think I play it well. So yeah, but it doesn't bother me. Right? It's good.
It's not the worst thing to be known for.
Yeah, you're right.
You're laughing. It's not the worst thing. Now, you also have a pretty great middle name. It's Maverick. Where does Maverick come from? Is your parents Top Gun fans? Where did the name?
That's the number one question.
Because it's Brett Maverick Phillips,
yep,
right?
Correct.
So where does that come from?
So Top Gun, no. Everyone thinks it's Top Gun. It's
right.
the old James Gardner cowboy movie.
Oh yeah,
back in the day, and
yeah.
then they came out with the Mel Gibson. He played that. So
the remake. Yes.
My dad, his name is Brett James Phillips, but when he was younger, his dad would call him Maverick as a nickname, and so as my dad got older, he enjoyed the nickname, and obviously he wanted to name his first son Brett Maverick.
That's cool.
And so that's
and people call you Maverick now. I'm calling you Brett, but your close friends and family will call you Maverick.
So when I was younger, and my mom would say Brett, we'd both respond. So sorry, she's like, this isn't gonna work, you know. So Maverick caught on to the whole family. And like I said, I won't introduce myself as Maverick, but if someone calls me Maverick, it doesn't sound foreign to me. Most people, if they get called their middle name, it's different just because they never hear it.
Yeah.
But I introduce myself as Brett, but my friends and family call me Maverick. So it's
Do they call you Maverick in baseball?
Some of my old coaches.
Okay.
Pat Murphy, our bench coach, will call me Mav.
Okay.
But Yeah, it's cool.
I like it.
Yeah.
You can sign your autographs, Maverick or Brett.
Brett Phillips. Yeah, in the future I could be Mav, whatever.
You can be whatever you want.
Shorten it up, yeah.
We're talking to Brett Phillips here on the Sports Spectrum podcast, Milwaukee Brewers outfielder. Now, I was mentioning this highlight earlier of your first Major League game. And if you go to YouTube and you just search Brett Phillips, first Major League game, there's an ESPN highlight that you didn't even know was out there.
No, I didn't.
And when they did that highlight, yes, they showcased the laugh in the beginning, but then they showcased the fact that you grew up next door to the legendary Macho Man himself, Randy Savage.
It's so funny.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
It's so cool, and it's so funny hearing people get so excited about it. Just because I'm younger, and that wasn't my era of Macho Man. Oh yeah,
I grew up
Slim
with that,
Jim,
man.
legend. And so most people get so pumped about it. But I know Randy Poffo was his real name.
Yes.
But I know Randy is a guy who just loved life as well and was always out there playing basketball. And
You're playing basketball against the Macho Man.
I know.
Tell us that.
Every day, if you watch that video, I explain it. But every day coming home from school, I rode my bike to school in 7th grade through middle school. And he'd be out there playing, just shooting hoops by himself every day. Call me over. Hey, let's shoot some hoops. And
do you know who he is, by the way, at this time? Like, are you aware that he's the legendary Macho Man?
No, my family told me he's just a wrestler.
Okay.
He wrestled, but I wasn't starstruck.
Right.
I didn't follow wrestling growing up, and I just wasn't into that sport. So it was more of just, all right, this old man
wants to play
basketball with me. All right, like this is gonna be easy. He was older, he's in his 60s. And I kid you not, Jason, I didn't win one time. And I'm talking months and months of playing horse every single day. And I explained, he was like a kid, literally wanting to play over and over again. And I think he got so much joy of just beating me. It wasn't even the fact that, he was getting exercise. I think he was just super pumped that he just whip up on a young whippersnapper. You know what I mean?
Unbelievable. The fact that, first of all, there's a little breaking news here. Obviously, Randy Macho Man passed away 7 years ago or so. Yeah. But the fact that the Macho Man was a hoopster, nobody ever know that this dude was playing basketball.
Well, my man played minor league baseball as well.
Yes, he did. I did know that.
So he was an athlete.
Yeah.
Don't let that old man fool you. He could hustle some people.
I just imagine him beating you in horse and just going into,
yeah.
I can't imagine that.
He would talk like that, but he never went into character. He would never, yeah.
But you said, we were talking before the interview about how you have some of this memorabilia.
I do.
Of the Macho Man. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so his wife, Lynn, still lives next door.
Yeah.
She's a sweetheart, and she was cleaning out the house not too long ago, and we were fortunate enough to be able to get a couple of Randy's signed uniforms. He had a different uniform every match, so that's a lot of uniforms.
Every single match.
Yeah, it had a custom suit.
Wow.
So we have a couple framed, which is super special to my stepdad and my mom, because my stepdad was pretty close with him.
Yeah.
But it's cool. It's cool. I walk past it every day. I see it, and just, it reminds me of just getting beat, which isn't cool. But
yeah, but just kind of
it was a good
childhood
dude.
memory.
Yeah, childhood memory, and he was a great dude overall.
That's awesome. So I'm looking at you right now, and you have a wristband that says, "In Jesus' name I play," which I love. And we'll talk about that exact meaning to you in a moment. But let's talk about your faith in Christ, and when that started for you, what that looked like when you were younger.
Yeah, so how I came to Christ was at a young age. My mom had me and my sister in a Christian school. I was in a Christian school from kindergarten through 4th grade, so I was very familiar with the background of the Bible, the stories, because of Veggie Tales.
Yeah.
Veggie Tales, Veggie Tales, Veggie Tales, Veggie Tales. So, I had the background of the Bible, but I didn't know what it looked like to commit myself to Christ and all that until I was a little older in 7th grade. And I'll never forget, I'm still in touch with a guy by the name of Gary Hunt. He ran it was called an unclub. It's still up now in my city, but he would run this club every Wednesday in the morning before school, and he basically preached to us about the Bible, and it was awesome. But his selling point to kids was free donuts.
Oh, yeah.
So
gotta rig him in somehow. Reel him in.
He reeled me in with those donuts, and that's where I accepted Christ into my life in 7th grade. And from there, I've always been very moral growing up. I always felt like if I did something wrong, I felt like God would just spite me right then. So that's how moral I was, like super straight edge. Yeah. And fast forward through high school, I kind of got shaky in my faith when it came to certain things, but I was still very, I had that relationship of, okay, if I did something wrong, I knew. I knew in my heart that it was wrong.
Right.
And then last year, coming to this Increase conference, it was my first time. And first time in my life, I really felt like I needed to deepen my relationship with Christ. I had what I felt, all my things, I felt like sorted out where it was time to propel my faith in getting baptized here last year at the Increase conference.
Wow. And,
ever since I've gotten baptized last year this time, my faith has just been propelled in just this upward direction that I can't even start to explain what God's done for me this past year. And it's just been a super exciting time in my life. And, I give all the credit to God, but it started with really committing myself with that baptism and feeling, all right, it's time that I need to have an intimate relationship with Christ. And it started last year here at the Increase conference. So it's something I'm very, very passionate about speaking about.
So what did that look like for you prior to that moment a year ago when you were getting baptized and sort of, I don't want to say taking your faith more seriously because it probably was always there, but when you were in the minors and you were kind of trailing through, you get drafted, and sort of where is faith on the scope of Brett during that? Are you reading your Bible? Are you going to church?
Yeah,
are you not doing any of that?
A baseball chapel every Sunday, but I wasn't plugged into a church in the off season. I felt like my relationship with Christ during season was great, but then I got to the off season and I got out of the habit of, just that relationship. And, like you said, I wasn't reading my Bible. And last year, when I got baptized, Don Christensen gave us that book of, it was a reading plan of reading the Bible in the chronological order.
Yes.
And I wish I brought it in here. I have it in my room. I'm on day 363, and I haven't missed a day this whole year. And after my first month of just incorporating that in my routine, if I got home at 2-3 in the morning from a game and I hadn't done it yet that day, I had to do it before I go to bed. And that's just something that awesome. Has been awesome to me. And like I said, we can take pictures of it, but I'm on day 363. I started it right when I got it and I haven't missed a day. And it's been just an absolute blessing in my life that I've, like I said, starting with that baptism of me being propelled in my faith has just been amazing.
So baseball players are wired and sort of in the midst of being a routine. Like your routine is your routine. You get to the ballpark, you do this, you have some people have superstitions, you have to eat a certain food, you have to wear your socks a certain way. So you're in a routine. Is that how you sort of suddenly found yourself in your faith? It's like, this has got to be a routine for me. This has got to be the same thing. Like that reading probably helped you in
definitely. That. Yes and no at the same time, because that word routine, I feel like you can get complacent in a routine.
Sure. And,
with your walk with Christ, you can't get complacent because, as they say, the enemy is always there to grab us off course, to take us in a different direction. And so, yes, as a routine, as I had to do it every day because I wanted to please God, but no, as in I'm not complacent of just doing it. I'm actually learning what I'm reading. I'm actually incorporating what I'm reading in my life, and that's just super special to me.
That's a relationship too. That's walking the walk and not just kind of reading a Bible and then that's okay.
And I didn't really understand what that relationship felt like I knew what it looked like, but I didn't understand what it felt like until I started reading my Bible every day. And I think most people don't understand, if they're not in the Word every day, what a real relationship is supposed to feel like. They look around and they see different, believers and how their walk looks, but they don't necessarily feel what everyone else, what they're feeling, because they're maybe they're not plugged into the Word. And I really felt that this past year.
A lot of times when we look back, that's really a great story, by the way. Thank you for sharing that. A lot of times when we look back at our lives, we say, okay, God was orchestrating this plan perfectly for us, even if we didn't know the Lord. I could tell you stories of before I knew Jesus that you're like, okay, it's clear that God still knew what he was doing. He had his hand in this sort of path in life. For you, your path going back to high school and coming into professional baseball was sort of interesting. I want you to share the story you were telling me beforehand about being recruited and ending up going and getting drafted by the Astros.
Yeah, and I'm going to rewind. It's always amazing, no matter what people are going through in the moment. If you talk to them years later, weeks later, they can always say they say, "Oh, that's why I went through what I did,"
yes.
Or that's why that happened. And that's just the glory and the grace of God. That's just the amazing part. No matter how tough the situation is right now, I know years from now, you can always look back and say, "Wow, God, like you had your hand on my shoulder the whole time," and that's why. So going into high school, I felt that I was good at baseball, and I guess colleges didn't really see that. I had one offer to play in college at NC State. One offer.
Wow.
Yeah, and I played football in the fall of my senior year, and everyone was saying, "You're crazy for playing football. You've already signed at NC State for a baseball scholarship. What if you get hurt?" And so I didn't get hurt, thank God. And I go to one showcase right before my season opens up. It was a perfect game showcase down in Fort Myers. And basically, they didn't have enough guys, so they were calling around saying, "Hey, would you want to come and do the showcase?" So
let me interrupt you real quick.
Yeah.
Explain for our listeners what a showcase is.
So a showcase is a skills camp that kids can go to for a day or two, and basically run a 60-yard dash, throw from their position, hit, and basically show their tools
to scouts.
To scouts.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm at this showcase. I haven't picked up a baseball in 3 months, and something crazy happens. I throw from the outfield. I was the top guy. I threw like 96 miles an hour when I'm 17 from the outfield. It was the top rated one. And then I ran very well, and I hit okay. And next thing you know, my high school season starts, and there's one scout in the stands, right?
That's pretty awesome.
So that game, I can distinctly remember I hit a home run, had a couple base hits, and the next game there's 2 scouts. And I kid you not, by the end of the season, I had 60 professional scouts lined up, the third base side, the first base side, and questions were, "All right, Brett, like, were you hiding an injury in the past?
Yeah.
Why are you signed with NC State? You live in Florida. Why don't you have offers from UF, Miami, FSU? What's going on?"
Yeah.
And for people who don't have a relationship with Christ, I say, I just got good really fast. And they're like, "No, that doesn't happen. You don't get good really fast." And
right.
I said, "Well, yes, God allows that to happen."
Yeah.
So next thing you know, I'm getting drafted in the 6th round out of high school to the Houston Astros, and I'm off playing professional baseball. And coming from having one college scholarship, if you ask any of these guys out here how many college scholarships they had, most of them will say, "I had stacks of papers.
Yeah.
I've been recruited since 9th grade."
Yeah.
And mine's just, I'm in the same spot, but it's just, it's really cool to see how people get to where they are.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my story starting professional baseball.
I love it. So give me the journey in the minors, because minor league baseball, by the way, we've talked to a few minor leaguers on this podcast. It's not a glamorous life.
I'm glad you used that word.
It is not a glamorous life. But give me a sample of the cities or even towns in some cases that you were in for a few years.
So I started off in the Gulf Coast League, which is known for the Gulf Roast League. You're playing at 1 o'clock. There's no spectators. And I say to younger guys, that's basically where you're paying your dues because it's not glamorous whatsoever. You're staying in these dumpy hotels and you're paying your dues. Fast forward to the next year, I'm playing advanced rookie ball in Greenville, Tennessee. I'll never forget.
Greenville, Tennessee.
Yeah, you ask where that is.
No
I can't
idea.
tell you. By Johnson City. I know we played there.
Okay.
But I'll never forget my mom coming up to visit me, walking in this motel that I'm staying at, and walking right back out and saying, no, I can't. You're not living like this. And I said, yeah, this is our team hotel. This is where we're living. And she was genuinely upset to see her son living in a Chalet Inn motel in Greenville, Tennessee, where guys were getting bed bugs every night. Maids wouldn't come for weeks. And, this is all for the pursuit of a dream, right? Yeah. So to me, this is awesome. Like, hey, I'm playing professional baseball. I know, like, anyone else who doesn't understand would have walked in that motel room and walked right back out because they would have said, no chance. But for me, hey, this is a place to sleep. Give me a cot. Like, put it up in the clubhouse. I don't care. I love this game.
Wow.
I'm getting paid to do what I love, and I'm passionate about it. So finally, thank God, made it out of there. Yeah. And then Quad Cities, which is in Iowa.
I was going to ask you where
that's right? Low A. Midwest League was awesome, and I started to really
better hotel at least.
Better host family.
Host family.
Which
those are interesting. I've heard about those.
Host families are great, and this is where this family actually helped me out. They were a solid Christian family who took me in, I say, off the streets, a minor league baseball player off the streets.
Of Quad Cities.
And they basically mentored towards me.
Wow.
And it's tough being in the minor leagues because there's just so many ups and downs. You're so the future is just so you don't. It's a blur because you don't know. So they were great. They were the Willie family, and they just did a great job mentoring towards me. After a game, when I would go home, it wasn't about baseball. It was just about what's going on in your life. And
still in touch with the Willie family?
Oh, yeah. The Willie family is great. And then Lancaster, California, into the desert, about an hour away from L.A., I stayed with the Wilson family, again, another Christian family who mentored towards me. And then moved to Double-A, which was in Corpus Christi, Texas. Yeah. And I lived with Greg and Bridget. They were another great Christian family. They planted a church. All three of them were in the church, which was great.
Cool. Was that intentional, or is that just kind of that's the way it worked out?
That's just the way it worked out.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's God right there,
man.
Yeah,
God working in my life and saying, hey, these are the people that are going to help you along the way and help you to where you want to get to where you are. So when you are where you are, you will appreciate it and you'll know how to handle yourself in a godly way. And that's
this host family thing is just amazing. I don't know why I didn't know about this.
Yeah,
I just assume you stayed in hotels.
No. It's so if you're fortunate enough, you get to save money.
Right.
And these host families literally take you off. Take care. Don't know you at all, and say, hey, we want you to stay with us.
That's so cool.
And I got plugged into them as well, being in Baseball Chapel. Obviously, they do their research. So being a Christian opened those doors for me as well.
For sure.
And then
AAA.
Boom. Nope. Traded.
That's right. So we go to 2015, and
I'm in Corpus
Christi. You're thinking you're going to
and
make your dream in Houston, and all of a sudden, Milwaukee comes calling.
Bittersweet. That's all I can say is bittersweet. And at that moment, all of the friendships I had made, the relationships, I felt like they were just torn right from me. But also knowing that the Milwaukee Brewers have traded for me and investing in me that's why I say bittersweet, because I wouldn't be where I am today without the Milwaukee Brewers. So I go to Biloxi, Mississippi. The Southern League. I feel like I'm in mini Las Vegas. You got strips of casinos. Great ballpark, great food, but just wasn't my kind of lifestyle. Yeah. So, and then this past year, fortunate enough to go to AAA. I didn't actually have a good season, but they saw something in me and potential and said, all right, we're going to move you to AAA.
Colorado Springs,
which is a great area. Ballpark, not so much, but great fans. Yeah. And I didn't live in a host family there. And then June 5th, rolls around, and that's when I made my debut.
Wow. See, people, listen, the journey towards the major leagues is so filled with these ups and downs and these crazy stories of going from these little towns to little towns. It is not glamorous. But let me ask you this question. So obviously it's easy to say, what's the biggest difference in your time in the minors compared to the majors? But you get to Milwaukee. So was there some kind of perk or something when you got to the Brewers and you were just like, oh, we don't get this in the minors? Or maybe it was a variety of things, but you were like, oh my gosh, like this is how it is to be a big leaguer?
I could name so many things.
Give me a couple.
So first things first, getting on a big league charter airplane, walking down the aisle where people normally put their carry-on bags are all filled with snacks, right?
Oh my goodness.
And I'm walking down the aisle and I'm like, there is just no way right now. Yeah, I'll take the peanut M&Ms, the cheese and crackers, great. Oh, bag of grapes. Yeah. Well, I got to mix it in with my peanut M&Ms, right? So I get to my seat and the hostess comes up, or the steward, what is she?
Stewardess,
flight attendant. Flight attendant comes up and Mr. Phillips, would you like a soda, water, or the appetizer list, some coconut shrimp? Yes, of course.
I'll have it all.
I'll have it all. You know, right? So she brings me. We take off. 10 minutes into takeoff, Mr. Phillips, this is gonna be your course for the. There's three types of meals: chicken, steak, or fish. Which one would you like? Oh, well, this is tough. I'll do the chicken tonight. All right. Yep.
Wow.
So bring me chicken. I'm done with that. 30 minutes later, this is the dessert menu for the night. Would you like a piece of chocolate cake, a warm brownie? And I'm just like, oh my goodness. Yes, let me get a warm brownie. My stomach hurts, but I'll take the brownie, right? And
you're not getting bed bugs in Tennessee anymore,
better.
are you?
It gets better, right? So then we're about to land, and she comes back around with a thing of ice cream. And at this point, I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just so bloated. But yes, I need some ice cream. So
great.
This went on for the first 3 times. And then I'm looking around and no one else is doing this. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, is this okay for me to be ordering everything on the menu?
Yeah.
And then I just realized, like, okay, they've done it so much that it doesn't even phase them, yeah, right? Yeah. And so it's funny because September rolls around and I see someone for the first time making their debut, and I'm sitting across from them. I'm just watching them. Yes, please. Yeah, yes, please. I'm like, oh my gosh, right. Everyone does this their first time. So That was really cool and really special. And that moment, in those moments, like I said, it makes me appreciate everything so much more going through what I did in the minor leagues.
Of course.
And I'm not a guy that says, the minor leagues is, it's negative. I don't have anything negative to say about the minor leagues, just because everything I've learned from the minor leagues has helped me to get to where I am.
Sure.
And appreciating everything a lot more because I spent that time going through what I did.
And I think every big leaguer you talk to will have a similar, maybe not exactly the same, but they'll have a similar story, a similar journey, because it's through these small little towns, these host families, bed bugs in a hotel room,
those trials and tribulations.
Trials and tribulations to go through, believe it or not, right? That you are just appreciating when you get there. You're like, wow, this is just cool.
This
right?
is where it's
at.
This
is amazing. All right, let's wrap it up with this. We're talking to Brett Phillips here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. I want to ask you about the bracelet again. You're wearing a bracelet. It says, "In Jesus' name I play." It's from Active Faith. Really great company, and they're doing awesome stuff. But I want you to explain to our audience why you play for that name, why you play for the name of Jesus.
Oh, man. Well, if it weren't for Jesus, I wouldn't have these gifts that he's given me to go out there and glorify him. And every time I step out on the field, I don't need a reminder, but seeing this bracelet, "In Jesus' name I play," just remembering why I'm there is because of him. And being on this pedestal that I've been put on just because of my job title is a great platform for me to spread the joy, spread the love, and spread his name. And that's what I do on a consistent basis. That's what I try to do on a consistent basis, starting with the fans. And going back to what I said in the beginning, just treating everyone the way that I would want to be treated.
Yeah.
And that's that relationship with God, and that's the reason I play because of Him, and I play for Him, and
that's cool.
I play, just because He's blessed me with the gifts and the opportunity, not me.
That's great.
I've got nothing to do with it.
Absolutely. This has been a treat talking to you, Brett Phillips. Thank you so much for being here in the podcast.
Yeah,
man.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you to Sports Spectrum podcast.
You got to get it right now.
Thank you, Sports Spectrum podcast. Over and out.
Over and out, Maverick. Over and out. And we do thank Milwaukee Brewers outfielder Brett Phillips, the man with the amazing laugh, for joining us here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. And as promised in the beginning, I do want to play you a little bit of, it's very tough to hear, but you can kind of hear this kind of sound from Brett Phillips when he loses it, when he starts laughing so hard that he can't breathe. And he starts this sort of wheezing, uncontrollable convulsion thing that happens. You can watch it on YouTube. But here's a little bit of what that sounded like. This was literally right after we finished taping this podcast. What happened? I can't do it. Oh, no. He's down. He's going down.
Musa, hold on.
Help this guy out. It was quite the sight in person to see that happen, to just see him lose it. And it wasn't even anything anybody said. He was just trying to tape these sort of liners. You're listening to the Sports Spectrum podcast, and he just lost it. He just absolutely lost it. It was quite the sight to witness, and we do appreciate Brett for joining us here on the podcast. Great guy. Wish him nothing but the best. I hope he's the 2018 Rookie of the Year. I just think he's such a fun guy, and he's definitely one of the most talented rookies that you're going to watch this year. He has the strongest arm in baseball, I think, or one of the strongest arms. So hopefully he gets a chance to show what he can do, and we wish him nothing but the best from all of us here at Sports Spectrum. Thank you so much for listening. As always, you can reach us on Twitter at sports_spectrum. We're also on Facebook and Instagram as well. You can email us, jason@sportspectrum.com. And of course, go to iTunes, leave a review, let us know what you think of the podcast. That just helps get the word out and get to as many people as possible to hear and see and know all about the Sports Spectrum podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time right here on Sports Spectrum.